July sales have just been finalized for most of the manufacturers in the United States. And if you're a freak of a nerd of cars like I am, you look at the monthly car sales not just as a matter of fact or, oh, this is where the industry is going. You look at it as essentially like a game, whether it's a race like Le Mans, because it's a long distance race, the whole calendar year of car sales. But you also look at it like a fantasy football league, like who's doing well, which models are hot or which players are hot, which brands are doing well, which it is so entertaining for me. And if you guys like that, I try to update you every single month as we get these numbers. Make sure you subscribe if you are a huge geek like that. But hit the like button as we start to get into these sales numbers. And we're going to focus on Honda in this video. I'll have to make separate videos for potentially other automakers, especially I think Hyundai, because they just broke an all-time sales record, and maybe Mazda as well. I'll try to get those videos up in the next couple days, but I have a lot on my plate. I just picked up the Camry LE for a review, and I got to drive the heck out of it just to get any sort of fuel economy ratings or readings from it because it gets like 60 miles a gallon. I also have an AMG CLE 53 to review this week. My quick review will be going up tomorrow on that, and I just posted a quick review on the Audi Q6 e-tron Quattro, not the SQ6 I reviewed earlier this year. So check out Kirk's Quickies or Kirk's Quick Car Reviews for those quick reviews. But let's get into the exciting details here. July is just wrapped up. And before we get into these numbers, we'll get to them, I promise. But we got to keep in mind that July of last year, of 2024, there was the CDK, the software attack. Pretty much all dealerships run a specific software for inventory and for sales. And then when that software went down last July, it destroyed sales figures. And so most of these numbers should be up. And if they're not up, I'm going to be extraordinarily worried. Let's focus on Honda. Honda was only up 1.3% in July despite the CDK outage last year. Acura down 10%. Despite the drop in efficiency last year in the month of July due to the software being down. Maybe Honda and Acura navigated the CDK outages a lot better. That's a possibility. All right, but I just had to throw that in there before we get into it. All right, Acura sales. Man, this is a hurt. This hurts. Down 10%. Honda up 1%. But if you include Honda and Acura together, it's pretty much a wash for the month of July. And Honda is still up about 6% on the year. Acura is up 4% on the year. But this is not the right direction we want to be going. You see Ford doing well. Maybe I'll make a video on Ford. If you guys want me to do a video on Ford, let me know in the comments. Put your top three, which automakers you want me to cover, because I can't cover them all with these sales updates. I'll do Ford if you want me to. Honda and Kia, I really want to cover. This number is crazy. Same thing with Mazda's number, super high. And I can't really cover Toyota because Toyota doesn't post their sales numbers unless it's quarterly, like Nissan, for example. But look at Toyota up 22%. What are they cooking with? What are they cooking with? I'm going to have to make a separate video for Toyota and try to do the best I can, all right? Because I don't have specific numbers really on individual models, but I can get a bit nerdy. I know how to work around it. All right, so let's get into Honda. What's going on here? Well, Honda's doing okay. Acura seems to be falling off of a cliff. Remember, they just killed the TLX, and the TLX, well, that's not being around, it's going to hurt their sales just a little bit. It's not like it was selling a whole lot to begin with. We saw record July sales for the new Passport. It's a fantastic vehicle. Check my review on it. And we also saw light truck July sales record and 6th straight month over 70,000 units. What does light truck mean? Well, Honda says light truck is anything from the Ridgeline to the not the ADX, that's Acura, to the HRV. Okay, so crossovers and pickup truck for Honda is a light truck. So they just posted a July sales record for their light trucks. CRV led all Honda models with 32,000 and the CRV hybrid, which is fantastic. And there are a lot of them out there. You can get great deals on the CRV hybrid right now. It's over 54% of all CRVs sold. It's only a matter of time before it goes full hybrid, and they need to go full hybrid on it, in my opinion, to keep up with Toyota. But yeah, I don't know if there's any keeping up with Toyota anymore. It's just insane. But the CRV sold over 400,000 units for the first time last year. All new Passport, record July at just 4,762. I say just. It's still a huge number for the Passport because it's up nearly 90% year over year. But if you compare it to where the CRV sales are, it's about 6 times less than what the CRV sells. It's just insane. TrailSport, 75% of the model mix. Well, it's essentially there are 3 trim levels of the Passport. You have TrailSport, TrailSport Elite, and the base model is an RTL. All right. I think it'd be awesome if Acura also came in with a more base model than the RTL. But maybe they'll do that when they come out with the large platform hybrid eventually. HRV, made in Mexico, should be able to dodge some of the tariffs. I don't get too much into tariffs right now, but yeah, Honda is still affected by tariffs. Keep that in mind because a lot of their parts come from outside of the country. Pilot sold almost 10,000 units. Ridgeline actually outsold the Passport. Go Ridgeline. And Odyssey, 8,000 units, almost 9,000 units. I mean, there's not a lot of excitement on the Acura end. In fact, it's kind of sad because we just got the cancellation of the beloved TLX. It wasn't a perfect car, and it struggled with its weight and it struggled with its usability on the inside, but it was still a beautiful car. And now Acura is essentially without a sedan. The Integra is the closest thing, and it's a 5-door. Yeah, I would count it as a sedan, but technically there's no 3-box sedan anymore. And the TLX, some people saying, hey, that should have been a liftback when they redesigned it. Should have been a liftback. It should have been like a Kia Stinger sort of thing. That would have been cool, but they didn't go that route. And the demise of the TLX is still hard to stomach. And despite the CDK outage, there's actually one more selling day, 26 selling days in July 2025 versus just 25 selling days in 2024. So let's get back to those sales here. They had more days to work with here, and they didn't have a CDK outage for their dealers. And that despite that, the Accord is still diminishing, down an extra 1,000 units compared to where it was last year, down 10%, or that's on a DSR rating, down 6.5% for sales volume. The Accord is down 14 to 15% this year. I have a lot of issues with the Accord, right? Its price, you can get good deals on it because it's hard to, Honda's struggling to fetch a full price for the Accord. Even Toyota and the fantastic Camry, it's hard for Toyota to fetch full price on a sedan right now. It's just not a sedan market. It's not where the big profit margins are. And so Honda's okay with the Accord kind of diminishing here. And who knows what they're going to do with the next gen Accord at this rate. They're okay with that diminishing because in that plant they build Integras in Marysville, Ohio. They built the TLX. They will be building their 0 Series EVs from the new RSX to the new Honda Saloon and midsize SUV as well. Honda, again, still reworking that Marysville auto plant, and the Accord was supposed to go to Indiana, but I haven't heard a sniff of that getting closer to reality. So the thing is, like, if the Accord were to go to Indiana, like they said it was going to for production, it would have to split between the Civic and I think the CRV is built there too. I just don't see them doing that now with a lull in EVs. Should I say a lull in EV demand and the TLX being killed. So with the TLX being killed, I feel like it's just easier for the Accord to stay put. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to move it or not. It would make sense for them to keep it in Marysville, Ohio. The Honda Civic, this is still a high volume seller for them, down 2% on the year, down 6% on the month, but down 9% on a DSR rating. So not moving in the right direction there. CRV, it didn't have a record July despite, their light trucks, which would include the Odyssey then. But despite the light trucks being a record every month for 2025, the CRV is actually not doing as well as it was last year, down 6% on the month, but it's up 6% on the year. So the CRV still has a potential to beat last year's sales record when this is all said and done. HRV, built in Mexico. This gets a bit tricky. The Civic's also built in Canada, but it's also built in the United States. HRV is 100% built in Mexico. Up 3% on the year, down 2% on the month. Not that big of a deal. Honda Odyssey. And what we're seeing with minivans right now is a revival. I think the stigma that maybe Gen X had with vans or older millennials had with vans is quickly being erased. Minivans, as if you guys watched Wolverine versus Deadpool versus Wolverine, the Honda Odyssey made it. Honda didn't know it was going to be in the movie, but an old Honda Odyssey's in that. And it's just like, they make jokes at minivans, but we also know as like the modern parents that minivans are irreplaceable. Sliding doors, nothing easier than that. Nothing more luxurious when you have little kids. Low center of entry point. Your kids aren't going to ding anyone else's doors with the doors opening up like a big SUV. So we're seeing a huge shift to minivans right now. Kia, well, I can't wait to get to the Kia end of things to see how well the Carnival's doing. And Deadpool versus Wolverine, they make fun of the Carnival. Carnival's good though. Carnival's fine. And the Sienna, there's just like none available of the Sienna. So with such high demand for the Sienna and no availability, customers are buying the Odyssey. Customers are buying the Carnival. And the Odyssey is the best van. The Odyssey is the best driving, the most luxurious minivan available in the United States. It just gets bad fuel economy, but it's fun to drive. It handles better than any other minivan. It's very comfortable, and it has VTEC. It's incredible. I love the Honda Odyssey. That's why I made like 4 videos of the 2025 long-termer I had, if not more. Honda Odyssey deserves all the sales it gets. It's old and it's long in the tooth. It's old. It needs a hybrid. And then when Honda delivers a hybrid on the Odyssey, I can't imagine a world where Honda does not develop a hybridized Odyssey. But it's up 27% on the year, 27% on the month. They can't build enough of them probably at this point. Honda Passport. Again, record breaking for that model. It's doing great. The Honda Pilot down 20%. You might be saying, Kirk, what's going on with the Pilot? Well, you got to keep in mind the Odyssey, the Passport, the Pilot, and the Ridgeline are all built in Lincoln, Alabama. They only have so much production. So with the Ridgeline up, the Passport massively up. So what? That's about 3,000 units right there. The Odyssey, another 2,000 units up versus last year. So we're up 5,000 units overall on the large platform. So the Pilot can be down 3,000 units, or it's actually more like 2,000 units. Honda is selling more Prologues than Chevy is selling of the Blazer EV. All right. So they're soaking up GM's production volume, and they would rather get their vehicles out despite losing money on them. These things are incentivized a lot. Honda's incentivizing the Prologue and not incentivizing a lot of their other models. You can see how many Civic hybrids have been sold as well, over almost 52,000. So if we go back to the Civic here, so we're going to divide, let's say just say 52,000 divided by how many Civics we're at, 147,000. It's at 35%, and that's where Honda wanted to be. I think they want to be a lot higher actually with Civic hybrid penetration. But it's such a good car, such a rewarding hybrid, and it's about ready to get better when Honda comes out with the Prelude and the S Plus shift button. Let's get into the bloodbath that is Acura. This is heartbreaking. Integra, down 30% on the month. I know they just came out with a refresh, but that shouldn't stop production. So that's really tough to see. The Integra down about 28% on the year. So it's in line with the rest of its lack of production. So this Marysville auto plant where they're reworking, adding flex assembly for EVs, it's hurting Integra and it's hurting Accord a lot. And it was the demise, and it spelled the demise, you could say, in many ways, or helped with it, of the TLX. So TLX, these numbers don't mean anything because I should have had my highlighter on the whole time. And it's never too late to get the highlighter out. So I apologize for not having it up earlier. So the TLX, yeah, goodbye. If you want one, this is your last chance. They're going to be, production has stopped, and that's the end of it. Until maybe if Honda has a new EV saloon, Acura could too. But yeah, it's not the same. Honda's engines and playfulness, that's what makes Honda Honda. It's to me, it's internal combustion engines that are engaging and fun to drive, and great interiors, and reliability. When you take out the internal combustion engine, we need to find a new identity for Honda and Acura. It'll be fine. I think they'll have good competitors, but it's hard for me to imagine the entire brand of Acura just going to the EVs. A lot of these brands, though, are. Volvo wants to, even though they just backtracked on that. Lexus wants to by 2030. And it's just tough. It's tough to wrap my head around that. But let's get back to reality. ADX up about 20, well, it sold 2,300 units last month, and then it's up, or it's sold about 7,000 units so far this year. So we might see a dip in HRV production so that the ADX, which is also built in the Celaya plant down in Mexico, I think it's the Celaya plant, the ADX can take some of and soak up some of that production volume. The profit margins are a lot greater on the ADX than it is the HRV. So yeah, that makes sense. MDX down, it just had a refresh. Don't know if the refresh did anything to help them because it's down 22% on the month and down 15% on the year. MDX, it's a good vehicle. The Type S is a great vehicle, and the standard MDX isn't, built to the same quality, in my opinion, as the Type S. Unfortunately, it feels everything about it feels much cheaper. Anyway, there's just more competition out there as well. Is the MDX suffering now that Lexus has the TX? It's a possibility. I don't know 100%. But RDX down 50%. What is happening? Why is it down 50%? It's not like it's getting a massive refresh or something or a redesign. Why is the RDX down 50%? Is it supply chain shortages? Is it, does it get a lot of parts from Japan and they were being tariffed too high? So they're like, hey, let's just cool our jets making MDX and RDX right now. Maybe it had too much foreign parts. And so they're like, hey, it just doesn't make sense to overproduce them. I don't have any explanation why the RDX is down over 50% on the month of July. It's crazy. They even had one more selling day. It's down 20% on the year now as it's just in free fall. ZDX even down on the month, minus 4%. It's up a gajillion percent on the year because it wasn't sold for the entirety of last year. So they've sold 11,000 ZDX. They've sold 22,000 Prologues for the full EV end of things. Acura down 9%. The only thing helping them here is the existence of the ADX. Think about that. I mean, the TLX is a non-factor. That car's canceled. So the only thing keeping Acura afloat right now is the Acura that I think is the least Acura. The ADX is comfortable and it has good tech and it has good usability, but the CVT turbo in it is not precision crafted performance, and it does not get good fuel economy, and it does not have super handling all-wheel drive. It is the least Acura model within Acura, and it's keeping the brand from being completely in the red. It's the only one positive right now, and this TLX, like I said, it doesn't exist anymore. And I was curious, because Acura is down so much, I wanted to see if they have models piling up. And the only way, at least the easiest way for me to see what's going on is comparing their model availability versus their direct competitors. So on the far left, I have Genesis. In the middle is Acura. On the far right, I have Lexus. And you can see in my area, there's actually more Genesis models available than Acura. So that tells me right there, with Genesis having about, let's say 60 to 70% or so of the sales volume of Acura, is that Acura might be a little bit volume restricted right now. Lexus is still one of the fastest moving brands in the United States. And if we go back to the Lexus sales volume, Lexus sold 31,000 last year, 3 times more. So Lexus has 3 times the sales volume of Acura. Yeah, a little bit more. Genesis at 6,700 and Acura at 10,000. So we have 3 times the sales volume versus Acura and 61% of the inventory that Lexus has. So Lexus has more inventory, but it's moving through that inventory significantly faster than Acura. And Genesis, who's making up ground on Acura right now, as we go back to this, Acura down 10%, Genesis up 8%. Genesis has a lot of inventory versus the amount of sales that they're conducting. But let's look at competitors for these three brands. Okay, we know that the MDX MDX and RDX are the two biggest sellers, also probably the two biggest casualties right now in terms of a drop in sales. There are 319 MDXs in my area, and there are way more GV80s. Way more. There's almost 457 GV80s, and that's not counting the coupe. So if you count the coupe, we're over 500 units. We have way more availability with Genesis potential 3-row crossover. Obviously, the coupe crossover is not of the GV80, but it's a direct competitor. You guys know what I mean. And then what about Lexus? Well, the Lexus, I guess you could say two things compete with the MDX. It's the RX and the TX, but more specifically the TX. The TX has big volume available too. 392 TXs. Look at, there's only 77 TX hybrids and one TX plug-in hybrid. So you're seeing a swelling of inventory on the gasoline TX in my area. That makes sense to me, right? This powertrain on the TX 350. Yes, it is fairly smooth on the TX, but the 500H powertrain is what that vehicle deserves. And sometimes you'll just have buyers that can't get a Grand Highlander hybrid, just go to the TX 500H, spend an extra 10 grand because you can actually get one. The RX is also crazy. The RX is the best seller for Lexus, but look at this. Look at what's happening with the RX. I know it's really small, so just listen to my voice. I'll guide you. There are 573 available RX turbos, the 350. However, the more desirable hybrids of the RX, the 350H, for example, there's only 16 available. The plug-in hybrid, there's only 15. The performance 500H, there's only 7. So there's little to no RX hybrids sitting around. They're already pre-sold essentially with the sort of volume you have. And then the RX 350s, no longer a V6. They're not hybridized. They're collecting dust. What about Acura? Again, the MDX kind of serves where the RX and the TX fit on the Lexus end. There's a lot more availability between the RX and the TX versus the MDX, but again, they sell 3 times more. So let's check out the GV70 versus the RDX versus the NX. Again, the RDX kind of fits in between the Lexus NX and RX in terms of size and space. As I click the NX, there's actually by far the most NX 250s. This is a lease car down here in South Florida, the NX. And so when you have this basic RAV4 powertrain in here, they just want a nicer experience. They want the Lexus badge and a cheaper lease payment while still having some clout. That's what this vehicle is. The hybrid, which there's actually a good amount of NX hybrids, 165, far more than the RX. The NX is a better vehicle than the RX, in my opinion. Drives better. It's easier to park. It isn't as ugly. So the NX, in volume-wise, is doing actually, it's quite high. The RX is very limited on the hybrid end. The RDX has a lot of volume here too, but we're seeing that volume also creep up on the Lexus end, surprisingly to me anyways. The GV70 has a huge swelling of volume, 608 units versus the RDX 268. So the RDX is probably, and the MDX seemingly are a little bit down on availability versus their nearest competitors. That is definitely, I would say, hurting them. When you have lower volume, you probably don't need to incentivize as much to move the excess inventory. So that also hurts sales because you're not being price competitive, and the dealers are hurting a little bit more while the manufacturer is kind of shielded because they're not incentivizing as much. That's just my theory. Genesis, their volume's really high, and that's why they're enclosing on Acura. Acura's volume, including the Integra end, which I didn't even talk about. The Integra, there's 307 in my area. There's plenty around. There's plenty of Integras to go around and plenty of ADX. Like the brand new ADX, there is a boatload, 517 ADXs. And the ADX, in terms of volume or in terms of size, competes between a Lexus UX, which there's hardly any. UX can just be discontinued, and the Lexus NX. On the Genesis side, there is no direct competitor to it. The GV70 would be closest. Technically, the V60 would be the closest, which is a fully electric, but there's hardly any of those in my area because they don't sell. Acura has the sales volume, seemingly, especially with the ADX. They have it with, look how many TLXs, despite them, being gone from the market now. Well, should I say production being, there's a hole there in their lineup. And a lot of Integras, quite a few MDX, like they're not that inventory strapped, nor is Lexus at this point, especially not Genesis. Lexus has a few holes where they're still inventory strapped, like the GX. NX availability is getting better and pretty decent when there's more hybrids than there are the NX 350. So NX is fine right now with volume, but the RX is severely lacking with its hybrids. The availability is just not there. The TX hybrid availability really isn't that robust either. So this is good. Inventories are improving for these manufacturers. The volume availability, I should say, of Acura isn't its biggest hurdle right now. It might be the product. The product might not be competitive enough. There are no hybrids in their lineup. Their one EV is not made by Honda yet. Wait for the RSX, right? Like the ADX, with this volume, it just launched. You think when you've just launched a new vehicle that the volume wouldn't be there, but it is. It's there, and the volume is much bigger than something like an MDX, which is its number one seller. And the volume on the ADX is about twice that it is in the RDX, just in my area, right? I could compare nationally here, which since I'm talking about it, I guess I'll do. There's over 5,000 ADX, 5,400 ADXs to 2,300 Integras available, to just 3,500 MDXs and just 23 RDXs. Quite a few TLXs, actually. That's surprising. There's still a ton of TLXs out there and quite a bit of ZDX. So the inventory seems to be there, and it's really favoring the ADX, which is, like I said, the worst Acura and the least Acura out of all of them. On the Genesis end, we're seeing tons of volume too, especially on the G70, which is a direct competitor against the Integra. Well, sort of. You guys know what I mean. It's their smallest sedan. Well, Acura's only sedan now. But the GV70, almost 4,000 units, which is far higher than MDX, RDX. And then you add the GV80, which is also right there with the MDX in terms of volume. On the Lexus end, nationwide, as we look at MDX, RDX versus, let's say, NX, RX. NX volume, well, they have just so many variants. It's hard for me to just tally this up. NX volume, though, 2,000, 3,000, about 3,500, I guess you could say, which is quite a bit more than the RDX, but the NX sells way more than the RDX in general. So Acura's okay in terms of availability, I would say. Genesis more than okay in terms of availability. So I'm not quite sure. Has Mazda closed the gap? Maybe. I'm not going to get Mazda out here. I'm just trying to rationalize why Acura is down so much. And the only vehicle that's positive is the ADX. And the ADX, it's not like it's flying off the shelves because they have by far the most available out of all the models they have is the ADX. That's a bit mind-blowing that Acura is so far down. Honda seems to be healthy. Their large vehicles very healthy. And once they get hybrids on those large vehicles, it's going to be, hey, game on Hyundai, game on Toyota, and everyone else is not going to, well, Kia as well, but like who else is going to have that many competitive hybrids? Nissan will finally be getting in the game, but they don't have a large platform hybrid. I love Acura. I love Acura so much, but what's happening with their sales volume is nothing short of like jaw dropping. And I'll see you guys in the comments. Stay tuned. I'll try to do more sales updates here as we go back to the score sheet. I'll try to get these out in the next couple days. And again, let me know what brands down below you want me to hit. I'll for sure hit Hyundai, for sure Mazda. If you want me to do Ford, I can do Ford. And then I can try to do a Toyota Lexus one. I know that video would do well, but it requires a lot more research since Toyota does not post, but for quarterly. They don't post monthly anymore. So thank you guys. See you in the comments. Have a good day.